Welcome to the Tr6 parts video. Welcome to part 1 of Tr6 engine rebuild. So this is the engine I took out of the Tr6 that's actually right here. And I'm going to rebuild the engine. So this is going to be basically multiple parts of how I strip it down, how I clean it and how I put it back together again. Again, I don't know, obviously I have to say this, but like there's loads of videos out there and people doing this and restoring them. For example, I know there's loads of videos that Ellen has on Rusty Beauties. Absolutely recommended videos, highly recommended. Go look at me, it's amazing videos. This is not in any way a description of, hey, this is a better way or anything, nothing like that at all. This is my way of doing it. It's just a helpful video of, hey, maybe there's something different that works for you, maybe not. Yeah, we'll see what it is. Anyway, so let's get cracking on this because I don't know how many parts there's going to be. So I want to get this onto the engine stand so I can actually start pulling out all the guts and the head and all that jazz. But before I do that, I need to take off the clutch. So first of all, we're going to remove that. I left it on the ground, it's still hooked up to the engine crane, but it's on the ground, the pan twisted. So the problem is if I lift it in the air, it's going to automatically turn itself and right itself up. That's why it's facing the way it is now. So normally I use hand tools. The time is a little against me today, so I'm going to cheat a bit and use a drill. Again, always keep somewhere to put the bolts, and obviously what you'd normally do, well, say normally, is that an ideal thing to do is take your bolts and washers out, and if you're reusing them, make sure you label them where you went, so you can find them again, because let's face it, you will come across them and not know what went where. There we go, we're already off. Here comes the toothpaste. Oh, this guide is a little sticky. Ooh. There we go. Come on. Off you go. There we go. So the whole thing came with it. Great. So you can see the little guide here. Remember here? So come out, should be in there. Anyway, leave that on. If you're not sure which way the clutch goes, always take pictures of it. Obviously inspect it, and it's always the best time to change the clutches now while it's out. Like if you're not sure if it's worn, if you have the car and the person who you bought it from has no idea when it got changed, now's the best time to do it. It's already out, it's not going to cost you anything else or time to replace it. But I know the newer ones will say which side is which. They'll actually say this side out, like towards the pressure plate, or this say to flywheel, which would be here. So a lot of them are tagged. If you're not sure, have a good look at it, you'll see it sort of steps, like a disc brake. So you can always say this end comes out, or this end goes in. So just remember what way it's set when you actually take it out. So, alright. Anyway, I'll put that to the side. Alright, so next thing I'm going to do is take the flywheel off as well. Now these are obviously bigger nuts, and I have a feeling I didn't bring this one with me. Yeah. So I'm going to have to cheat with this one, and actually no, I shouldn't be cheat. Go get it right. I thought I brought all the tools, I guess I didn't. Now, obviously I'm going to struggle with this, so now I'm going to cheat. So what I'm going to do is get the impact gun, or the air gun. Obviously, this one would be an ideal world if you can stop it from moving. Great. So if you had, and let's say you don't have an impact gun, I'll say an impact gun like one of these. If you don't have one, and you find the same that it's rotating, Like, could you put something in here in between the teeth to stop it moving? Yes, but I don't like that because if it slips, you're only going to damage your teeth. Now you're going to have a whole problem when it starts because now you have damaged teeth, which is going to damage the starter motor and all that jazz. If you get to that stage and you can't get that off, the best thing to do actually would be, and again, it's only a suggestion, but it's the best way for you to do it, is to raise it up, take the oil pan or the sump off, basically put something in through the crank so when it turns it stops. And that will keep it while you take these off. So, in case you don't have one of these. Let me know if you never put it back on with this. Because there is a torque setting and you will chop it up. So ideally you should never use an impact gun to put anything on. Modern cars do it, but you know what, if a modern mechanic wants to do that and ruin something, that's their own choice. Oh God! Now we have the flywheel out. So what we'll do is you have a pilot bushing in here, and pops out. Now, here's the thing, right? And just be mindful of this now that I take this engine apart, is that this engine is supposed to be an early engine, but some of the stuff doesn't match up. Because the early crank and everything usually has the pilot bushing that goes actually into the crankshaft, not the flywheel. So it's the other way around. So this one, this engine, in all honesty, as you see it go along, is a mixture of both engines. It's actually a mixture of a late and an early. So it's unfortunately I have to put it back the same way. But just be mindful of certain things, because you could get an engine, for example, like this. You're rebuilding the engine in the Tr6 you have, and you've never taken it apart, and the person who bought it just bought it and drove it and no idea. Be mindful what you see when you take it apart, because like this could be different. So if your pilot bushing goes into your flywheel, it's a late model, so you have to make sure everything matches up, otherwise you'll go through a catalogue, and regardless where you buy your part from, if you order it based on the engine number, well then you'll realise you're getting the wrong part, because if you order a pilot bushing, you'll realise you get a bigger one that's meant to go actually into the centre of the crank. So that's the difference with them, and just be mindful when you take apart what way it is when you go to replace it, that you get the same parts. Because obviously I'm only noticing this now because I'm just starting to take it apart. And just inspect everything. Again, even with your pilot bushing, make sure it's cylindrical, when I say that word, hope I said that right, that there's no little edges or burrs or something on the edge, because that shows that it's imbalanced and it's wobbling, and that means there's a problem. So that means you obviously don't want to use that again. These pilot bushings are pretty cheap. Again, if you're getting to that point where you're going to do a whole engine, it's always good to replace the pilot bushing as well. It's a cheap little part. And again, if it's been in there for 50 years, you're doing an engine, you want to make sure it lasts another 50. So, do you think you're going to get 100 years out of a pilot bushing? Think about that. Alright, let's put the flywheels inside. Wait! God, ahead. Alright, now I have them off, what I can do is I'm going to raise it up a bit. And I have my stand here. I sort of have a preset for an engine, if I remember which way I had it. Maybe that way, yeah, probably this way. And then I'm going to bolt this on, so therefore I can actually slip it onto the engine stand. So actually, let me get a start now. So again, I'll remove all this when I have it all disconnected, and it's down to just a block, because then at least it's more manageable to maneuver. Make sure I line up with the right ones. It's always easier to do, like, I don't have to do this section of it. I could just leave it on the ground, put some good cloths down and do it that way and flip it around, which is it's not the worst. I've done it many a time. The thing is though, like, and again, just be mindful, and again, this is health and safety kicking in, is that when you're taking the screws off the oil pan, it's going to be hanging up and you're underneath a suspended load. So like anything, it's not a great idea by any means to be underneath a suspended load. Even if you know you can move it out of the way, so like, you know what, for the extra few steps, because it only has to go around once and that's it. This is why I put it back on, because I'd rather take the extra few steps than not be able to do it anymore. So, but again, that's a choice. Alright, so now we can start lifting into the air. And you'll see it'll start to rotate. There we go. Alright, so at this point I can tighten these up a bit. I'm going to bring this on, of course. I know somebody's saying, hey look, it's a suspended load. Yeah, I only have an inch off the ground, I'm not walking under it. I'm making sure into the side so if it drops. Nice rainy day outside, thank God, the heat has been sweltering. Okay, so now I need to make room put it on my engine stand. So now to move everything out of the way. And again, this is where you normally edit. You don't need to see the part, but let's move the camera as well. So let's jack her up. I'm going to move it to the side just so I can get as much room as I can. Obviously, best time to move it is obviously when it's as low to the ground as you can, so if anything goes wrong, it's not going to fall very far. There's always a bit of a struggle. How do you get this onto the engine crane? Because not all the stands fit between the cranes because of the way they're shaped. Like, if you look at how, sorry, if you look at how these are shaped, the engine crane doesn't exactly fit in ideally. So there's a couple of ways. So if you have anything, you can twist it here, and then what I do is, if you can keep it all the way. I think I went too far though. Just lift it onto it and let it slide in. Let it hang in the air. So now it's in the air. I'll just keep it so it doesn't get stuck under the doesn't get stuck in there. I'm just going to let it down easy. Nice and easy, because you want to make sure it stays in there, it doesn't flop out. That takes the weight. There we are, we're golden. So now I have that done. I can now take my engine crane away, because it takes up a lot of room in here, especially when there's two cars. Actually, give me 1 second, I'll put it away. Fast forward this if you're watching, so you don't want to watch it. Done. Now, I'll leave the crane here. Here, out of the way. Alright, so now I have it on. The only thing I want to do is get a bolt and get my handle for here so it doesn't fall out. And any size bolt will go in. The whole idea of the bolt is just to stop it from rotating. So right now all the weight is still really on the top. So in an ideal world, before I rotate and flip it around and do a big hard spin, I'm going to actually take the top off, the head off. So let's bring the camera up. Yeah, sorry. Alright, all the fun parts are on this side, so I'm going to move it. Alright, so hopefully we can see pretty good. So we're going to work our way from top to bottom of it. We're going to take as much off as we can and we're going to get onto the head. So, again I have a little pan for nuts and bolts. So as I was saying, and if you can see it here, and somebody might have noticed it straight away, is that the thermostat housing is the wrong one. This one is actually off a 7576. It's the only one that's branded with the L for British Leyland and points dead straight. Because the radiator is different and it curls and basically does an S. Any early one, even from 68 or 69, wherever you want to refer to when it was built, all the way up to 74, actually have it at an angle. So you can see, and this is what tells me everything is being mixed matched on this. So don't, when you see this video, don't account for everything's exactly the way it should be. This is an early engine, and it has late parts in it. That's a late pulley. This is late, and unfortunately, they have an early damper, which is a 3/8 belt, and this is made for a 1/2 inch belt. So again, this is where things don't work properly because they're not lined up properly. So you have to be mindful. Whatever you do, if you're changing, you can do an early and late. But if you're going to change and put a late water pump on it, well, you better put a late damper on it to match, so all the belts match up. I want to say that the alternator is the only one that can actually, the way it's shaped, is good enough to take both a 3/8 or a 1/2 inch belt. So that should be that part. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all the water pump and all off. I probably will need to get some rags because I can guarantee some coolant is going to be coming out of this. So we'll get all that off, we'll get the damper off, we'll get the piping off, and then, do you know what, I don't want to make the video too long. I know this is part 1, and if I already have all the videos done, like, it's easy for me to say now, but I'll take it off and I'll start a new one and I'll do just the head on its own. So you're not sitting there too long. That was very, somebody has noticed that the ratchet is in my pocket and I'm using a spanner. Or a wrench, whatever you want to call it. That is true. I love using these though, I don't know why. It's just, I don't know. As a kid growing up, you'd always see old cars being worked on with old tools and simple basic tools. So maybe that's why I do it, because that's how they done it back then, and there's no reason why you can't do it now. Yeah, it can be frustrating, don't get me wrong. Like, it takes a long time like this when you could just use a ratchet. But I don't know. I get pleasures by using it. I love using spanners. There's an enjoyment in it for me. Alright, when we get this off, the housing itself doesn't change. The bottom of the water, the temperature housing is still the same. Always inspect everything. And obviously never reuse a gasket. Alright, so again, these are all 1/2 inch. So I'll try to show you. I'm going to bring the camera down. To take the water pump off, sorry, the way the light is shining, the camera is bright light. Sorry about that. Oh, that's better. So on the water pumps, you always have 3 1/2 inch bolts, two at the top basically and one at the bottom. When taking it off, you'll realise the best way to get it off is to keep going with this. The nuts, what will happen is most of the time with the late ones, you'll see it hits the back of the water pump. Just keep going. As you undo the nuts, it actually pushes it out at the exact same time. So, now to move the camera because it's in the way. As long as you push them out, as long as you push them out evenly. You realise to get the main is sort of the same, you have to have the water pump sort of half sticking out in order to get the nuts on to begin with. Alright, as you can see, I've stopped it right at it because the other two are not loose, so the water pump is not going anywhere until these are loose. The other way. And it's always easier to take this off first and then take the water pump housing off. I don't know why, just because it sits in, I don't know why, I find it, just the whole unit comes off, it's easier for me to do it this way, I don't know why. Seems like more work, which it probably is, but hey, we all have our own little ways of doing things. Drop that before it scratched the car. Here we are. Maybe because it's easier to do while it's on there because I have more grip. When you take it off, I'm going to keep spinning. Alright, hang on, let's do it, I need some cloths. We are dripping. Alright. Which is what I expected. So. Oh. Actually, now I have the front off, I can get that damper off. I already removed the bolt. So when I'm on the bottom one, I'm just going to keep going with this, and this is all the way out. As you can see, it's starting to separate at the bottom because it's pushing. So that's it. Because otherwise it sticks in there, especially if somebody's glued it in. It will obviously the nut must be at the end. That was threaded because it's not going any further. Now, don't worry, there's a good chance when you take this that the threads that go into the water pump housing will come out with it. That's a very realistic situation. I'm going to keep going until it literally will push, eventually get to the point that it will just push itself all the way out. No way. Sorry, I'm looking down on this. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm looking down the gap. Ooh, let me move the camera. Can you see that? I haven't taken it off yet, and I swear I can see silicone on the inside of the water pump. Like on the... Oh, now I need a screwdriver to get it out. It's stuck in there. This is why I don't like putting silicone on an engine. I said it before, so you're going to move it for the light. Look. You can clearly see the silicone has gotten down in by where the veins are on the thing. So you imagine it's... Silicone must be... It's going to affect it. I don't care what you say. It's after smearing in and going all the way in there. That's what you do not want. So, yeah. As for all you know, that will pull pieces in or go through the water pump, and now it's going to go through here and end up everywhere. So, yeah, no water, no silicone on the engine, please. Okay, so where am we? Move the camera again. So now we're back to it dripping again. We're going to remove the water pump casing. The further you go in, the more coolant you should find. Yep, it's dripping all over the floor. So, I don't mind, I have some rags down there to grab it. So the minute I take this off, you're going to get it all, whatever's in the head is going to come off as well. So once I take this off, the water pipe on the side will come with it because it's still attached to it. So if you want to separate them, now is a good point to do it because it's there's a grip, especially if you don't have a vice to hold onto it. So it's going to keep leaking out there. There's not much I can do about that. It stops. So I'm going to go grab another spanner. I'm going to disconnect the water pipe here just to make life easier for me. So I don't have to stick it in the vice. Off. Dripping all over the floor, wherever he knows. And I'll take the water pump housing off. There. Oh, the this gas is coming off. Won't come off. Won't come out. Right. And now the damper. I'd already taken the bolt off it, so it should come out handy enough. Fuel and wood is two different things. So what I was actually doing is I'm putting my flathead on here because it's the most amount of pressure I can get. Because I've done it on the other one, I take it out, I don't want to push there because there's a good chance of bending it in, but like sometimes you have to. As long as you take your time and go easy, it should be okay. Alright, now I will leave these on because when I go to actually lift it off, I'll need the eyes still on it. So now what we want to do is get to the head. So what I'll do is I'll stop it here, and there's not much else to take off other than this. Part two, we'll take this off and we'll take the head. And the reason why I just want to clean the floor. I don't want to work just cooling on the floor. I have the rags, but I don't want to be tripping all over. So okay, so join me in part two, and we'll go through more information, and we'll go through the stamp numbers to know whether you have a late or an early head. And yeah, so again, thanks for watching. See you in the next part.